What has a pee, a shave, my scrotum, and my perineum got in common? Well, if you're still listening to this video, one of the things I've talked about before on the Blue Soul Shoes site is as men hit middle age, changes happen to their body, stuff we can't do anything about, and that can be a great challenge on our mental health. So in this video, I want to talk about something that's happened to me recently that may well be happening to you, and I hope it encourages you. 1 in 3 men between the ages of 45 and 55 will experience a problem with their prostate. And it happened exactly the same for me. So after my stroke last year, I wasn't peeing properly, and it's a common problem amongst men. I wasn't able to empty my bladder properly. And I went to see the doctor. And for any of you that have been through that, you know the first thing that the doctor does if you tell him you're struggling to pee is he'll stick his finger up your bum and he'll check your prostate to see whether that's enlarged. Now, I know most of us watching will know what your prostate is, but for those who don't, I've got a drawing for you to have a look. It's probably going to appear backwards because it's on screen. That's a picture of your bits, guys. And by the way, if your willy and your balls look like this picture, go to the doctor straight away. This is not meant to be a lifelike drawing. And as you can see, the light blue is the prostate gland. And so it sits right at the top of your bum, and then you've got your bladder, and your prostate is the light blue one that just sits there. So that's where your prostate gland is. Its job in life is to make semen. So your balls make sperm, your prostate gland makes semen. But as you get into your middle age, it enlarges. It's like the male menopause. It enlarges, and that's just part of becoming middle-aged. And if it gets too big, it can press on your bladder. But it's also where prostate cancer can happen. So I had the check. I then had a blood test, which is really common and men are encouraged to have. So that's what I had. And then the blood count was quite high. And so it meant I had to have an MRI. Now, lots of you guys out there will have had an MRI before for lots of different reasons. It's the big machine where you're in the tunnel and you lie there with the headphones on and it's really noisy. Unfortunately, my MRI came back with an 11 centimetre mark on it. And that wasn't very good. 11 millimetres, sorry, just over 1 centimetre. So I got a call to say, Ash, that's not very good. And they measure it on a 1 to 5 scale. So if you've got something on your prostate that's between 1 and 3 in size, they leave it. 5 is likely could be cancer. 4, they're just not sure. It's a lesion. So my 11 millimetre lesion was seen as a number 4. And so they wanted to do a biopsy. Now, if you're a little bit sensitive or you don't like the talk of needles, perhaps now's the time to sign off. I'm going to talk about the procedure. And you're told before you go in, it's outpatient. You get a local anaesthetic to deal with it. And basically, they're going to take a number of different cells from your prostate in order for they can put it under a microscope and see if you've got cancer. And all you're told before you go in is you're going to have your legs up in stirrups. And it can be a little bit uncomfortable. Now, I've got quite a good pain threshold. I always have for some reason. So I wasn't too apprehensive about it. And strangely, on the morning of the procedure, for some reason, vanity stepped in. And I thought, well, they're going to be looking at me bits down below. So I'll do a bit of manscaping and I'll shave it and get it all tidied up. Not even thinking the guys that do this must see people's bumholes every single day. And they don't give a damn what you look like. But vanity took over, so I got it all tidied up and headed into the hospital. And it's really incredible because I know women watching this will say, well, welcome to our world, because you guys, women, you have to give birth and you have regular smear tests. I always think discomfort and embarrassment is relative, though. And as guys, we're not, I hope most of us are not used to being in that position. And initially, it's not just embarrassing, but you feel quite vulnerable because you're lying back in a dentist chair. You've got your knees pulled right back. legs wide open, and your bits are there on show. And at that point, they don't give a damn whether I've shaved or not. That they've just got a job to do. So it's done in a nice environment. It's quite quiet. They have some classical music on. The lighting's quite dim. And you get in the position and they get you to sit back and they tell you to relax. And just to help you relax, they then decide to tape your scrotum to the gown that you're wearing, just so you couldn't feel a little bit more vulnerable. And then what they do is they put a probe up your bum that's got a camera in it, and that sits up there for the whole 25 minutes of the procedure. Now, I'm sure the probe was tiny, but it did feel like they were putting a rolling pin up there. It was a very strange feeling. It felt very stretched for the whole 25 minutes, and I'm sure it went straight back to its normal size, but it did feel a little bit stretched for a few days. And then they decide to use the local anaesthetic, because that's what they need to do. Now, the local anaesthetic goes in through your perineum. Now, again, I know most of you know what that is, but just in case you're not sure of the human body, the perineum is the bit between the bottom of your balls and your bumhole. It's the bit that can unfortunately tear when women give birth. But as guys, we're not used to that area much. You may well be, but that's your life. Free to do as you please. And they inject a little bit of local anaesthetic in there. And then when that bit's numb, they stick the needle a bit deeper and they inject the cells inside, the flesh inside. And then they stick the needle in deeper to put local anaesthetic in your prostate. That's the bit that really stings. That's the bit that really hurt. I was really genuinely holding on at that point and sweating. And I like to try and get in the zone when I'm in pain. I had a very lovely nurse talking to me about my life, my children, my family, my job, to take my mind off it. But at this point, I was really trying to focus, and that really, really did hurt. And with your prostate, it sits there and you've got a tube through the middle which you pee out of, and so they had to inject either side to do that, and that was probably really pretty uncomfortable. But once it was numb, they could take bits from it, and they took about 24 samples in all, 12 from either side, in order that they can test all the cells in the prostate. When I was starting to feel comfortable and got fed up with the nurse talking to me, I thought I'd have a little look up excuse me, and see what they were up to down there. And as I looked down, guys, I've never seen a needle like it. It would have put Luke Skywalker's lightsaber to shame. So I quickly started saying, tell me about your family, tell me about your job, and tell me about your children, because it was not something I wanted to look at again. And that was the end of the procedure. So it was 25 minutes, almost half an hour. Fantastic NHS staff. They look after you really well. You sit in the waiting room, you have to have a pee, give you a cup of tea before you go. They then inform you that for about the next 2 weeks, you're going to be peeing blood while your body recovers. That's something I've never had before, and is a bit weird. And then you're waiting. And you know, the challenge for anyone with mental health is when you're not in control of things. Often when you're not in control. And I'm quite good at managing my head now from an adult perspective. I control what I can control. And so when I knew I was having the tests and I knew I was having the biopsy, you could say, well, that's the next thing, that's all I can manage. When you've then got the 10 days of not knowing, that's when your mental health can be really challenged. And if you've gone through that or are going through that, that's completely normal. That's okay, and that's something everyone will go through. And it is easy at that time to slip into unhelpful thinking states. So you can go into the child state, where you say, well, it's not fair. Why should I be having this? I keep myself fit. I had a mental health crisis last year. I had a stroke last year, and now I've possibly got prostate cancer. This isn't fair. Why is it happening to me? That doesn't do me any good. Or you can go into the parental state, the critical parent, which doesn't help you either, and you tell yourself off. Oh, come on, sort yourself out. You're lucky you've got an NHS here. Don't be such a wuss. Get on with it. It's only a couple of needles. That doesn't help either. Those thought processes, child and critical parent, just make you feel anxious and puts you down, and that's not okay. So sometimes you just have to accept you've got to wait. And I was a bit low the day of going in, and Sharon and I went in last Friday, Sharon's my wife, to get the result. And you sit in the waiting room, and there's just two of us in there in the consulting room, and The doctor came in eventually with a nurse, and the nurse had a badge on her saying Macmillan Cancer Nurse, so you fear the worst. But thankfully he sat and said, we've done the biopsies and all of them are clear of cancer. And all you're going to have now is 3 monthly blood tests to check. So that was an immense relief, but I'm not doing this video to say, isn't it great news for me? I'm doing this video because I want you guys to recognise that when you hit middle age, things happen to your body that you can't control. You can't control whether your prostate grows, whether it has cancer, whether it doesn't. But what you can do is not just ignore it, and so many guys do that. If you've got any problem at all with your body, get it sorted. It's too easy to ignore it. And guess what? If you ignore it, it's only going to get worse, guys. I get it's embarrassing. I think the amount of people that have seen me in that position, sitting like that, is probably under 10. Yeah? And that doesn't count people that have seen it online. Not many people will see you like that, and they shouldn't see you like that. But the discomfort and the embarrassment is worth it because it's about your life. And if you ignore stuff like that, your mental health will suffer, guys. It will. It won't just miraculously get better. And of course, you know, we have a responsibility to our family and our loved ones and our kids and our friends to get better. We don't want cancer. We don't want to die young. But the biggest responsibility we have is to ourselves. Your biggest responsibility is to you, to make sure you turn up and look after yourself. And yes, there's pressures on us as middle-aged men to ignore this stuff, but ignoring it won't make it go away. And ignoring it will not help your mental health. So my encouragement to you is, I've been through discomfort. It ain't good. I'm not sitting here telling you it's good, but I'd rather have found out than be sitting here for week on week, month on month and thinking, what if I've got prostate cancer? What if I've got something else? So you're middle-aged, things are going to go wrong, that's okay. Make sure you deal with it, go and see your GP, and please do put your mental health first.